Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. I'm Luke Lipinski.
And I am Doug Cannon, the Dougie.
On this week's episode, we look at the biggest surprises from the first third of the season and begin to shift our focus towards the upcoming World Junior Championships.
We're also going to take a look at this year's rookie race, which currently is a battle royale.
All that, and Doug helps plan the Maple Leaf Stanley Cup Parade. Let's drop the puck on episode 60. We are back, episode 60 of the Hockey Podcast, the triumphant return of the Hockey Podcasts, the start of a new era of the Hockey I'm running out of things to say.
Sorry, guys.
That's Doug Cannon apologizing already. His first words to you in the last 2 months are an apology. And I'm
That's because
Luke
I'm a
Lipinski.
nice guy. I respect our listeners.
Well, that's good. I respect our listeners as well. They probably wonder what happened to us, but we are here.
Well, we just got out of rehab, so it was
not
it
true.
was a turmoil of 2 months.
Don't listen to Doug. None of that is true. Nothing he's saying is true. We're trying to get back to doing this once a week is the goal. So we took a step back, tried to figure out a more strategic approach, and this hopefully is the beginning.
It's the beginning of strategy.
Yes. There was a time when we did the show every week.
Yes, we did.
That was about the first 50 episodes. The last 9
The last 10 were kind of
spread out.
willy-nilly. There's a word for you.
We also have a lost episode that nobody will ever hear. That there was some technical issues. We recorded one about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and
I didn't even save it for a blooper tape. I just said, no, this is going in the trash can.
destroyed the evidence.
It's gone.
So it is episode 60.
Yep.
And the reason we do this podcast is because Doug likes to play this game where...
No, I don't like this game at all, and you know I don't like this game. But we've been doing it for 60 podcasts, so here we go.
So who is the best number 60 in NHL history?
It's a goalie.
It is. And that's it. We're just moving on.
It's a goalie. I always pronounce his name wrong, so I'm going to let you do it.
And what if I don't want to pronounce it?
Well, then,
Jose Theodore.
Is it Jose or Jose?
Well, I've heard it both ways, but
It's the Theodore that bothers me.
Oh, that's definitely right.
Yeah, but it's spelt Theodore.
Okay.
Like
Jose Theodore.
Is his nickname the Chipmunk?
Yes, probably. Actually, you know how hockey locker rooms are. 5
teams, 17 years. He played with Montreal, Colorado, Florida, Washington, Minnesota. What was his original number before he switched to 60?
Oh.
Just a little tidbit out there.
It was like in the 30s, wasn't it? Like
yes, it was.
30.
Good guess. 37.
Oh, it was? Okay. That was actually going to be my guess. Wow.
There. So
Okay.
37 was his original number, and he switched to 60 when he was with Montreal.
And all of these stats pale in comparison to my stats. 2002 Hart Trophy winner, dated Paris Hilton. Moving
Wow.
on. Top that.
Wow, I didn't have that one. That's a nugget.
That's
what in the biz they call a nugget.
That's what's known as an advanced metric.
I don't like those words.
No, you don't like those?
No.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of the analytic world.
Well,
and that's
good luck to that.
That should be a segment.
Yeah, that will be a segment. Not today, but that will be a segment soon.
It's just the analytical world is just nonsense.
Are you going to turn into Don Cherry / Charles Barkley on me?
It's just nonsense.
Okay. So you're turning into them right before my very eyes.
You either play the game or you don't.
Oh, that's true. We're going to get into this, but not today.
And if you play the game, you're going to have good numbers. If you don't play, you're going to have bad numbers. You don't need to be a rocket scientist or go to school for 4 years to figure that out.
Or we're going to get into it right now.
Okay, let's move on.
All right. So we are roughly 30 to 34 games into the season, depending on who the team is that you're talking about as we record this. So what is that? Not quite halfway through, but more than a quarter of the way. A little more than the third, whatever. We haven't done an actual show that has aired since very early in the season. So we're just going to kind of go through and hit on some of our surprises here, team-wise. Not really player-wise, team-wise. And then next segment we'll get into the rookie race, which I'm enjoying the rookie race this season more than I can remember. Really, probably in the last...
Yeah, the rookie race is a lot of fun this year because there's a lot of good young talent. And I think it's also the trend. You know, a lot of sports, not to digress, but I'm going to digress because I like to digress, is that, you know, NBA guys can go right out of high school and play pro. Football, you get 4 years of college, and then you're into the pros once you're drafted. Hockey traditionally is, 3-4 years juniors or NCAA roster before you even make it. So you're drafted when you're 17, and you might make a roster when you're 19, 20. That's not the case anymore. Guys are being drafted in the first round and playing the following season.
And not just, it's not just the top pick or the top 2 or 3
No.
picks. We've talked about this on the show before. I mean, last year we kind of projected which players right after the draft, so this would be the 2014 draft, how many of them would be playing that year. And we were pretty close, but now if you want to remove yourself just 1 year, I mean, there's a guy in Detroit who's 19 who's playing on Detroit's top line. That's unheard of.
And he's holding his own.
I don't know why
at the age of 19.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm hiding his name as if we're gonna
We'll talk about him in the next segment. We're obviously referring to Dylan Larkin.
in case the hockey fans that are listening didn't know who it was.
Right.
All right, but let's get into some of these teams here. And
okay, let's start with the biggest disappointment. Who's your biggest disappointment?
boy, there are 3 very strong candidates for this. I mean, if you want my biggest disappointment, you know who it's going to be. But we'll get into that. Actually,
mine right now is Anaheim.
Yeah.
Everybody that has listened to the show knows that I've always supported Anaheim and kind of pushed for Anaheim because I think they have a really talented roster.
They do.
They are dead last in the Western Conference.
Yeah, okay. You're right. Anaheim.
They're not tied for last. They are last.
Anaheim is the most disappointing team. I don't even think that's debatable. They are not only tied for last in the West, they are tied for last in the NHL with Toronto, who's actually kind of exceeding expectations, and Columbus, who's also been disappointing, but they've at least picked it up a little bit lately. The thing about Anaheim, as we record this, they have 29 points on the season. They're 3 points out of a playoff spot because the Pacific Division is so
bad.
It's just packed together. I mean, 33 points in second and 29 points in seventh. Like, I don't know if it's bad or if it's going to be really entertaining. I guess comparing it to the other divisions right now, it's kind of bad.
It's kind of bad. What happens is you've got a division that's gone mediocre on us. A division that used to be a powerhouse in the Western Conference. Like, you would look at the Pacific Division and we would look at it as, I don't know how to pick this because the teams in this division are so good and so strong. That's not the case this season.
When we did the predictions at the start of the season, this was my most difficult division to pick outside of LA running away with first, and they're doing it.
Right.
I thought LA would run away with first and Anaheim would be right there in second, and that's not the case right now. But what was tough about it is take LA out of even take Anaheim out for a second. You've got Edmonton, Calgary, and Arizona that are clearly on the rise, but when are they going to rise?
Right.
And then you've got San Jose and Vancouver, and I guess Anaheim that are kind of either just holding serve or backsliding. And you've got teams like Anaheim and even Vancouver that are maybe built more to try to be physical like LA. But as you just alluded to earlier, you need to have speed and youth in the NHL now, and that's Arizona, Calgary, and Edmonton. So you have this weird confluence of teams that are... You're going to just let me slide by saying confluence there? You're not even going to bring it up?
No, I was looking it up in the dictionary. Oh. Sorry.
Okay. It's just you have different styles of team with teams within the same division going in different directions, and they're all just stuck together.
But is that's the transition, right? That's the transition of the league. You're going to have teams that did it one way for so long. Well, the rest of the teams that weren't so successful are trying the new way, and so you're going to find that point where those older teams drop down, the newer teams drop up, and we're going to make that, and then the league's style is going to change. And I think you're right. I think the league and the style of hockey that we're going to see is going to be quick, and it's going to be up and down, and that big, slow, old school stuff is going to kind of go by the wayside.
It works if you're LA, and slow being a relative term. These are still NHL players, but comparatively to their other NHL brethren.
Right.
But like San Jose, I feel like in a lot of ways they modeled themselves, intentionally or not, after LA because you're playing LA and you're in that division. The West has always been big and physical, and I don't know how long it's going to last.
But here's the thing, though. You got a 19-year-old, we touched on it in Detroit. I don't have his physical stats in front of me, but at 19, he's not the same as a 24, 25-year-old physically. But he can compete with them because the athletes this year now are so young and strong and quick, and then they're wearing skates that are half an ounce, sticks that you can balance on your pinky finger. I mean, the equipment.
Have you tried that?
Yes, I have.
It's an odd goal celebration, but carry on.
But so with the physical capabilities of young athletes now and the technology with the equipment now, these guys are bigger, stronger, faster.
Yeah. Even Larkin, to your point, he's 6'1", 190 pounds. So he's a half inch shorter than me and 5 pounds more than me.
He's me. I'm 6'1", 190.
Oh, okay, he's you.
And, I mean, I'm not a big dude, but he can compete with the big dudes.
And he's 19.
So
anyway, none of this has anything to do with Anaheim except that they at times this season have looked slow and sort of, I hesitate to say this because I still think they're going to find a way into the playoffs, and I still respect that team a lot. There have been games this season where they look like...
Do you really think they're going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I still think they can. I mean, they're 3 points out. And
I don't know.
They have not played well at all.
I just think that they don't have the X factor. Because I watch a guy like Ryan Getzlaf, believe it or not, is still the second leading point getter on his roster.
Point getter.
Yeah.
Do you want my stat?
He's only got one goal.
And it's an empty net goal. I remember watching it. Ryan Getzlaf has not put one puck past a goalie this season.
But a guy like him has to be going for this team to go. And I watched him play a few games, and I'm like, he's not the Ryan Getzlaf I used to watch.
No.
There's something different going on with this guy. I don't know if there's some off-ice issue that nobody knows about, or if his head's not in the game, or what's going on.
I don't think it's any of that.
But he wears the C.
But see,
typically a team goes the way the captain goes.
Well, and they are.
And they are.
But I have some theories with Anaheim. One, Getzlaf has never been a fast player, and that's fine.
But he's been a goal scorer.
He has. But I think he also had more support around him. Like a lot of those years he's playing with Corey Perry and Bobby Ryan. Mm-hmm. Now he's playing with Corey Perry and insert other player on that third line, or that third player on that first line. Here, Perry started off terribly. He's okay now, 10 goals, 10 assists in 31 games. Who else is scoring in Anaheim, really, besides Corey Perry? They have no secondary scoring.
Yeah, because guys like Kessler aren't scoring, who typically scores.
He just got his 4th goal of the season 31 games in.
Silverberg, he's not scoring this year. He's usually that middle-of-the-road scorer, but he's like, they typically have those guys scoring double digits down the whole roster.
I thought he was,
that's not happening.
He looked like he was breaking out during the playoffs last year.
Right,
and
exactly.
he's regressed.
So they got a lot of work.
Well, how about Carl Hagelin? You bring him in to provide, I mean, that's a fast player. He has 2 goals.
Yeah.
And he's played. It's not like he's been hurt. He's played in all 31 games. He has 2 goals.
Okay, so before we move on to another team, what's the over-under on Coach Boudreau?
Well, I like what Anaheim did in that they didn't panic and fire him because he's had so much success in this league. And, well, I guess maybe people don't know now if they haven't heard us before, but you're a Toronto fan, I'm a Penguins fan, outside of both being huge Coyote supporters because we're here in Arizona. There was certainly a stretch where I was wondering if maybe Pittsburgh was going to fire their coach and Anaheim was going to fire Boudreau and Pittsburgh could go out and grab Boudreau. I wouldn't have been upset by that. Now I don't care because Pittsburgh already has a different coach, so Anaheim can do whatever they want. But I thought the Ducks showed some good patience holding on to him because he's had a lot of success. Maybe it was just a weird start. And also be aware of your surroundings. They're 3 points out of a playoff spot. If he can turn it around, you can still get in.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to do when you get in. I mean, at a certain point, somebody other than Corey Perry has to score a goal.
Okay, so now that I'm going to move on, I'm going to eat a little bit of crow.
Oh, good. It's my favorite part of the show.
In the Central Division, we'll stay in the Western Conference. A big surprise for me is Dallas.
You were wrong about that.
100% wrong on Dallas so far this season. I was not expecting that. Lindy Ruff has got this team just humming along. They're sitting atop the Central with 50 points.
114 goals scored. Nobody else in the West has more than 92.
That's incredible. A goal differential of 29. Nobody in the East comes close to 114 goals.
No. And I think we both expected them to be right at the top of the league in terms of offense because they already were last year.
Right.
The question was, would they have the goaltending or the defense to consistently win games? And I think that will be a question again in about 4 months when the playoffs start. But in terms of the regular season, not an issue. I don't remember where I had them. I know I had them in the playoffs.
Well, it's a silly thing to say, but at this pace with 114 goals for, if they stay on that pace, all they got to do is everybody else is going to have to try to keep up. They're going to go, oh, well, shit, I'm playing Dallas. They scored 5. I got to score 6.
That's basically what's happening. I mean, really, and nobody can.
Right.
They've lost 7 games in regulation all season. And, like, last night, as we record this, they just beat Montreal 6-2. A couple games ago, they put up 5 on Columbus, 6 on Carolina, 3 on Philadelphia, 4 on Vancouver. I mean, it's when you can count on having 3 or 4 goals at least every night.
Well,
he doesn't even have to be that good.
You and I have had this conversation over and over again. I mean, the magic number is 3. You have to score at least 3 goals to win in this league. 3 or more.
Okay, so I'm going to put this to you. How many NHL teams do you think are averaging 3 or higher goals per game this year?
1, 2, 3, 4.
5. Two of them are averaging right at 3.00, Montreal and Ottawa. The Capitals are 3.03. Boston is 3.26. And Dallas is 3.42 goals per game.
That's unbelievable.
Jamie Benn and Tyler
Okay,
Seguin
so now
are unstoppable.
Pause there. Every single team that was just mentioned is the top of their division.
Yep. Yeah.
Because of that. Because of that one stat.
Got to have offense.
If you can score 3+ goals a game, you're in.
Interested to see what Dallas does in a playoff series. I give them a ton of credit. And again, I was high on them in the offseason.
Yes, you were.
But I give them a ton of credit that they're leading the toughest division in hockey.
By a lot.
But I'm interested to see what happens in a 7-game series if they play Chicago. I mean...
Yeah, because you know what? With all that scoring offense and stuff, Chicago, if you face Chicago in a playoff series, you've got years of experience on that bench, and you're battling that.
And there is something to the idea that when you get into the playoffs, generally speaking, you're not going to be able to just run out there and score 5 goals and run teams off the ice.
Well, no, because strategies change and things tighten up. And
see the same team for 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
So I want to see how Dallas holds up when they're facing L.A. or Chicago in the playoffs, because if they want to get where they want to go, they're going to have to go through at least L.A. or Chicago.
Well, the Stanley Cup playoffs, I mean, it's just basically a big tournament, and that, you know, I've said it many times on the show. I'm a youth hockey coach. The hardest thing to do in any tournament is to beat the same team twice.
Let alone 4 times.
Let alone 4 times.
So I don't know if Dallas is really a surprise like some of these teams are. Anaheim.
For me, it was a big surprise because I can be wrong, but I didn't think I was going to be that wrong.
Okay, but Anaheim is a bigger surprise.
Holy smokes.
They're just... All right, let's hit on a couple teams here
Another
in the East.
Quick disappointment in the East is Columbus. I never for the life of me thought they would be sitting in the bottom of the Metro.
They've had a weird year. You know, start off 0-7, fire Todd Richards, bring in John Tortorella, lose your next game, all sorts of...
But, I mean, the big thing last year with Columbus was all the man games they lost due to injury. All those guys were healthy at the beginning of this season.
Doug gets emotional when he talks about Columbus. It's just part of the show, so you're going to have to deal with it.
And now they just laid a pancake.
They started so badly, and now I just remember the day they hired Tortorella, and I like Tortorella. He's never coached my team, so maybe I would feel different if he did. But the first thing I thought was, what is this going to do with Ryan Johansson there? That was the first player I thought of. I remember hearing a discussion of, this is going to help some guys and it's probably going to hurt some guys. I don't know what that situation is. He's been a healthy scratch a couple times. Everybody's saying the right things, but then you hear trade rumors. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on with Columbus, but I'm with you. I thought they would be a playoff team this year. They still could be.
Another big surprise for me is Boston.
Yeah, I'm not as surprised by Boston as a lot of people.
Boston's been kind of going through a transformation. They dumped a lot of players with salary cap and stuff like that. So the roster's not that Stanley Cup roster. They still have Chara and they still have Tuukka Rask. But they were just kind of in turmoil in my eyes because there's just so many changes. And then at the beginning of the season, Chara was out.
Yeah.
And they don't play well when he's not playing.
They do not.
And
it's not the same team at all.
They're sitting in second in the Atlantic.
They're 3 points back of Montreal. How crazy would that have been to even suggest anybody could get near Montreal 2 weeks ago?
Well, speaking of Montreal, now you've got that problem.
Yeah, they've lost 7 of 8 as we're recording this. Still
7 of 8. They
still
are
in first place.
2-7 in December. 9 games. They're 2-7. The big key here is no Price.
Yeah, and I think the mindset was you knew Price was going to be out for 6-7 weeks or whatever. Montreal was rolling. They were steamrolling everybody in the league. So the thought was, hey, maybe this can be a good experience for the Canadians. They can learn to win without Price, so they're going to be that much stronger when he comes back. They're not winning without Price. They need Carey Price in there, and that's fine. You can make
the rookie's doing a decent job.
He was. I think he's kind of hitting a wall.
He's a rookie.
And I mean, look, when you were the best team in the league through October, you have a big target on your back. So they're getting everybody's best game every night.
Yeah.
And they're still in first place despite that record you just ran out there. So that's not saying something.
Another big surprise I shouldn't say surprise, that's but one thing that I'm really liking and seeing is Washington atop of the Metro.
Yeah.
I love what Barry Trotz is doing in Washington.
I just think it comes together for them this year. I know I've said this to a few people, and everybody's response ultimately is, but they're the Capitals, so you know this is going to end.
But do you want to know why I like it?
Why do you like it?
Because Trotz has got a strong mindset in there, and one guy in particular, his name's Ovechkin. He has 16 goals and 13 assists right now. And you know me, I like that balance.
You do.
I don't like guys with 40 goals and 10 assists.
I don't mind those guys.
I like that balance. Especially out of a star player that everybody relies on. So now he's got Ovechkin playing both ways. Ovechkin's on pace for a 76-point season, playing both ways.
Yeah.
That's only 5 points less than last year when he had 50-plus goals. So you're still getting the production out of Ovechkin, but now it's being spread around. You've got a talented guy moving the puck around, so he's getting just as many apples as Geno's, and it's going to make this team better, and now they're atop the Metro Division.
And I would add to that, Evgeny Kuznetsov is breaking out. He's kind
Gesundheit.
Thank you. I love it when people that don't follow hockey very closely try to pronounce his name, which really isn't that hard to say when you see it. There's a lot harder names in the NHL, but
like McElhaney.
Yeah, yes, that's apparently a tough one too for some people. Kuznetsov, 28 points. He was kind of like Silverberg, except maybe even better in the playoffs last year. He really broke out, and with the pedigree he has, you just kind of had to think he was going to take off this season. And he has 28 points. But Braden Holtby might win the Vezina. And that's the first time in a while. He was good last year, but the first time that I can remember Washington's had great goaltending to go with their forwards. They've got good defense. You talked about Barry Trotz. Even if they don't make the Stanley Cup this year, and that was my preseason pick, is that they would. Even if they don't, I just think they're certainly heading in the right direction.
Oh, but Washington's in the playoffs. Washington right now is going deep in the playoffs.
And I agree with you, except if they slide at all in that division, they're facing the Rangers or the Islanders in the first round. That's rough.
I don't know. I still think they're doing it.
All right, we have to get the two disappointing teams here real quick, don't we?
Sure.
These are the teams that really surprised me, I guess, is maybe, I don't know. Anaheim's the only one that really surprised me, but are we going Tampa Bay or Pittsburgh here?
Yeah, let's do Tampa first.
Okay, let's just save Pittsburgh so I can be hanging over my head.
I think there's too much negative media in Tampa. There's something going wrong within the organization there.
Well, it's the Maple Leafs' fault.
Stamkos finally came out yesterday and said, look, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying. I want to stay in Tampa. Now, is he saying the right thing?
Well, he wasn't even doing that before.
Or does he mean it? But at least that step has been made. And it's probably the right step to hopefully turn this thing around, because there's no reason that this team should be sixth in the Atlantic.
No. And I don't even, to be fair, I don't think it's the Tampa media that's negative. I think it's outside media in Tampa that is negative, or just talking about Tampa.
Just in the hockey world in general.
If you look at last year's playoffs, so Chicago wins the Cup. If not for a bounce here or there, I think Anaheim beats them in the Western Conference Finals, and I think Anaheim would have won the Cup. Now they're lost. Chicago beats Tampa in the Cup, and I remember sort of having that feeling and talking to a few people after the Blackhawks won Game 6. This could absolutely be the Stanley Cup again next year, these two teams. I don't know what happened to Tampa.
Right.
I mean, the point that we didn't maybe drive home enough on Anaheim, they're averaging 1.84 goals per game, the Anaheim Ducks. With all that offense, in theory, I mean, as a team that was scoring goals last year, 30th in the NHL. Tampa Bay has scored a little bit lately to move up to 23rd. I mean, this was the highest scoring team last year.
Right.
And they haven't lost anybody.
That's the thing. So where is it? Is it, without pulling up any stats, is it Bishop?
No, Bishop's been great. I think Bishop will be an all-star. His goals against is 2. I mean, he's been fantastic, which makes it weirder.
So now here's what is the magic X factor, and that's why I kind of brought up the whole media Stamkos surrounding Stamkos, because remember, was it 3 seasons ago, we had the same thing in Tampa around St. Louis.
Yeah. What was that? That was 2 seasons ago.
So we still remember. You remember all that, and then once that was taken care of, the team settled in.
Well, the Stamkos thing's not going to get taken care of till after the season, so they're going to have to figure this out. Here's what I would say about Stamkos. He's not having a Stamkos-esque season. 12 goals, 11 assists.
He's not.
Still leads the team in points, 23.
Right.
So, yeah, that team is built around him being a 45 to 50 goal scorer, and he's nowhere near that pace right now. So that's hurting. And I'm sure a lot of that is the constant speculation and him liking tweets from the Toronto Maple Leafs and just that constant. But that triplets line that was great in the playoffs, only Nikita Kucherov is doing anything this year. Tyler Johnson and Andre Palat. Palat's been hurt. And I guess Johnson's missed some time, too. Tyler Johnson has 11 points this year.
Yeah, you don't have to remind me he's on my fantasy team.
All right. I might have to remind you that he's on your fantasy team, though, because he's not doing anything for you.
Well, he's always got that little red IR beside his name.
And Jonathan Drouin, I don't think they were counting on him for this season.
He's a big disappointment. I was so hot on this guy coming out of juniors into the league. I thought he would be another superstar within the league, and kind of a little bit of a disappointment there, Mr. Drouin.
It's still early-ish. I mean, there's guys in his draft class that are certainly having plenty of success already in the league, but it's possible he's a late bloomer. What is he? He's 20, so it's not like the end.
Yeah, but we're almost halfway through the season. Believe that or not? Do you believe that? We're almost halfway through.
No, I don't. But when you factor – see, don't say that. It makes me sad. But when you add the playoffs in, we're only like 10% of the way through the season, so it's okay.
Okay, so then the other one was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I can do a whole separate podcast on this if you want, so I won't go off too much. But I will just simply say now what I said to you off the air and what I said on this podcast 18 months ago, they need to start looking at the GM as the issue. Because he's made a lot of trades that have not gone well at all. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Trading Dupre for Ben Lovejoy when you've been waiting for Simone Dupre to be good for 3 or 4 years, and it would be like if Tampa waited for Jonathan Drouin and then Drouin starts to get really good next year, and they trade him away for David Clarkson. I mean, that's basically the equivalent of what that trade was. And it's one of those trades, and I'm sure we can go back to the tape. As it happened, I and numerous other people hated it. That's the problem. When you're making trades that everybody hates as you're making them, and they go that way. And look, you can get away with that as long as your team's winning, but they're not winning. They look lost, and now we've seen a coaching change. Who knows what else they're going to do, but...
Well, they also got rid of a lot of key players.
And I don't know why.
Like real strong role players like O'Neill. Because a guy like that, yeah, okay, he's not got 25, 30 goals, but he supplements the upper guys. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, I'll take that.
I mean, the one trade they made was Phil Kessel. I mean, look at your top scorers on that team. You got Malkin, Crosby, and Kessel.
But look a little bit closer. Malkin's got 15.
Right.
Malkin's fine. Everybody just wants to paint all of the Penguins with the same brush.
Right.
Malkin's been fine. He's got 15 goals, 13 assists, 32 games. Kessel's got 9 and 9. Crosby's got 6 and 16.
That's not bad for Kessel. Kessel's probably going to end up in around the 25-30 range goal-wise.
That's fine. That's fine.
If you have a hockey team and I got a guy scoring 30 goals, I want him.
Yeah, if he gets to 30, that's fine. If he ends up at like 22, that's fine, but that's not why they brought him in.
Right.
Crosby did not seem to fit into Mike Johnston's system at all. But look past those 3 guys. Nobody has more than 5 goals. Nobody.
Yeah, you're right.
And 5 goals at this point of the season puts you on pace for like 13.
Yeah.
They have no secondary scoring at all.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rely on 3 guys to do all your offense. That's just not going to work.
Chris Letang's been hurt. He's been in and out of the lineup. He's obviously the guy that kind of triggers the offense. I like the trade for Trevor Daley because he's not Chris Letang, but he can do some of the same things. And this is the one area where I'll give Mike Johnston a little bit of credit, and they probably needed to make a change. I wasn't upset that they fired him as a Penguins supporter, but he didn't have the pieces. I mean, he doesn't have the defense in place. He just has Chris Letang, and he's hurt. He didn't even have Trevor Daley when he was there, so he has to play a more defensive system because otherwise they give up 35 quality chances a night.
Okay, so then compound that on as we record this, they're starting goalies out.
Yeah, and Fleury was absolutely their best player this season. Now
I know because he's on my fantasy team.
Well, now he's out. You had him and Price. Maybe you should stop drafting goalies because
they're both out.
Bottom line is there was a stretch this season where the Penguins, what did they had won 9 of 10, but they weren't scoring goals. And so everybody was kind of like, this is weird. Like if they figured out a way to win low-scoring games, and do you want to win that way when you're the Penguins? My contention is if you build a team to score goals, you should be letting them score goals because you have to play to your strengths. Well, now they're not winning anymore. They've won 1 of their last 7. They just got beat by Carolina last night. Fleury's out, and I think that's probably the difference, but they got to figure something out here. And you go back to, if you have the wrong coach, that's rough because maybe you wasted a year of everybody's prime. If you have the wrong GM, he can destroy your team for like years to come. Like when you fire your GM, I'm not saying Rutherford has done this yet, but like the James Neal trade, you were right next to me when it happened. I hated it with a passion. I've made this point to numerous people. James Neal creates his own shot, and Patrick Hornquist, I like him, but he doesn't create his own shot. And people have argued with me, and that's fine. Look at their stats this year and watch them actually play.
Right.
Hornquist parks in front of the net, which is what he's supposed to do. Neal can carry the puck up the ice and shoot it.
Right.
The Penguins were in the situation where they were scoring goals and winning playoff series. They just weren't winning the cup. And they clearly thought they were better than they were, or they panicked when they didn't need to, and they just started getting rid of guys that score goals, and guess what? There's not a lot of them in the league.
Right. Well, have some fun. Mr. Dupuis got 4 points.
Well, and now he's retired. and he was one of the few guys that seemed to be able to play with Crosby. So I don't know. I don't know how this gets better. I mean, you've switched coaches. I'm interested to see what Mike Sullivan can do, but he's going to have a hard time if he doesn't have a goalie.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to stop making changes.
Yeah, they're going to end up like Edmonton if you start making too many changes.
You know what I'm saying? It just making change for the sake of making change. Sometimes, let's go back to Anaheim. Sometimes you maybe have to ride it out.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Sullivan, if he has the right attitude and he's going to let them be more aggressive, I think that would work in theory, but you're going to need a better defense. Again, I go back to Dupre, who's on Anaheim now when he probably could still be in Pittsburgh. That wouldn't have fixed everything. Fleury was fixing a lot of things, and he's out. So I would assume it's going to get better in Pittsburgh with that talent at the top of the lineup, but when you look closer at the lineup, you have 3 maybe Hall of Famers at the top of the lineup, maybe. And then what else do you have?
Nada.
It's not good.
You're listening to The Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
Segment 2, now that I'm sufficiently depressed after that Penguins talk at the end of the first segment. Thanks, Doug, for bringing that up.
I didn't bring it up. You brought it up.
You brought it up.
I know.
Let's talk rookies. This has been, like I said, my favorite storyline of the season so far. There's been some good storylines, but obviously we heard about Connor McDavid and we heard about Jack Eichel for what felt like years leading up to last year's draft. McDavid has missed, actually, figure he might be back in about 5-6
He's skating
weeks.
right now.
Yeah.
He's back on the ice. So.
Not with the team, but skating at least. Maybe end of January?
Nah.
I'm interested to see what happens if he jumps in the scoring race, and he's actually still 11th right now in the rookie scoring race. What if he comes back and finishes like 4th? Does he win Rookie of the Year having missed all that time? I don't think he'll finish 4th.
Well, that's not going to go because everybody is so stat driven. They're just going to look at numbers.
But if you go points per game, if he was finishing 4th, he's going to get some votes.
You're giving voters too much credit. They're not going to go that deep.
Okay, fair enough. But aside from those two, it hasn't just been those two. In fact, they haven't really even been the storyline lately. You've got Artemi Panarin in Chicago. You've got Max Domi in Arizona. You've got Dylan Larkin in Detroit. You've got Anthony Duclair also in Arizona. Those are your top 4 point producers in terms of rookies. And Eichel's not that far behind. Oscar Lindbergh in New York's been good. Sam Reinhart. You start to get into the Sams that were all drafted 2 years ago. They've been good. Bennett's been solid too. Apparently he can do pull-ups now. Lots of different guys putting the puck in the net now. And I should mention Shane Gostisbehere too, because last time I talked about the rookies, a Flyers fan got angry at me for not mentioning him. I like Shane Gostisbehere. I don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year, but he's having a pretty great season.
He's got 12 points. He's doing all right.
He's a defenseman, and they desperately need defense in Philadelphia.
And it's hard when he's only played 17 games.
No, he's been very impressive.
So he's got 12 points in 17 games. That's pretty darn good for a defenseman.
He's not going to win the scoring race for rookies, though.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Especially when you've got guys like Domi and Panarin, Larkin, Duclair. They've all played 32, 34 games. So obviously, and they're forwards.
And they're producing. It's not like they're just out there skating around.
Here's the thing I like. I'm just going to look at the top 5. Let's look at the top 3.
Okay.
Panarin, Domi, and Larkin.
Okay.
Panarin, 10 goals, 21 assists. Domi, 10, 15. Larkin, 11, 11. Now, you know those are numbers I like because they're balanced.
Pretty balanced. I mean, Panarin's mainly getting assists.
Yeah, because he's on a scoring machine.
On the Hart Trophy winners line?
Yeah. But my point is that here we have young guys coming into these professional rosters, and playing their first seasons as NHLers, but they're balanced. They're making guys around them good. Does Chicago really need a rookie to come in and make all those scorers better?
No, the rest of the league does not need that to happen, but it's happening.
You look at a Max Domi, he comes in, he's 10 and 15. Larkin's 11-11. He's got an assist for every goal.
Yeah, if you just want to, if you look at pure goals, Larkin has 11. Domi, Panarin, Duclair, Lindbergh all have 10. That's your goal scoring race. Points we've already kind of gone through, but you're right to that sort of point right there. How often do you see rookies come in and make their teammates better? It's supposed to be the other way around.
Right.
And we're seeing it this year, especially Domi, and you and I see it firsthand, so maybe slightly biased, but he is definitely making the players around him better. Panarin, I don't want it to come off like I'm not giving him a ton of credit. He's got 31 points already. He's helping Patrick Kane, but I think Patrick Kane is helping his stats more than the other way around, whereas Domi's clearly helping the guys around him quite a bit. And Larkin, I'm just blown away that he's stepped into Detroit's top line at 19 years of age and is holding his own. He's been there basically all year.
Right. Since the beginning. I mean, he's played 32 games with that line.
Yes. and he can keep up with them. It's, it takes a special kind of player to be able to step in and play alongside Henrik Zetterberg. Everybody looks at it that plays hockey and they're like, okay, well, put me on that line. I'll score some goals. Zetterberg's going to set me up. I'll just stand in front of the net with my stick on the ice and it'll go in.
Right.
But that hasn't been the case. Larkin's been a very key piece.
So then where do you go? Where's your cutoff for following the race? So right now I'm looking at the top 30 rookies, okay?
Oh, just in terms of points?
So in terms of points, the 30th and the 29th rookies have 5 points, and I'm talking about William Karlsson and Eero Pakaniran.
Well, you went way down the list. My cutoff is much higher than that.
So where would you put your cutoff point? Is it at 10? Do you stop anybody below 5? Doesn't matter?
And you're saying to predict who's going to win the Calder still with 50 games left? Okay, well, let me run through this real quick. Certainly, I think Jack Eichel's not that far off. He's in 6th. So certainly top 6 in scoring all count. I think you have to at least keep an eye on defensemen like Colton Parayko in St. Louis, who's 8th, and Shane Gostisbehere in Philadelphia, who's 12th. So you got to keep an eye on them, just because they're the only defensemen really up there. I like Nikolai Ehlers in Winnipeg. I like Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart. I don't think they are going to be able to catch up and actually win it, but I'm still keeping an eye on them. And I do think you have to keep an eye on McDavid. Again, let's just kind of project this out. And let's say he misses another month. Let's say he misses another 5-6 weeks. He'll be at 12 points. I don't think he's not. It's impossible for him to win the rookie scoring race because there are good rookies this year. But if he could finish top 5, that's an interesting storyline to me. So the guys I'm really looking at right now are Panarin, Domi, Larkin, Duclair, and Eichel.
Okay, so here's a guy that I really want to start following closely. His name's Jack Eichel. I've always been a big fan of Jack Eichel's. He's playing for Buffalo. Do you know how many shots he has through 34 games?
It's over 100, isn't it? He's a shooter.
105.
Yeah.
I mean, if he stays on that pace, I don't know how long he's going to sit in 6.
He's not. He's going to move up.
He has to. 105 shots. Now, here's the bad part about that. His shot percentage is only 8, rounded up to 9.
Yeah. I guess
whereas the top guys are like 27%, 16%.
Well, Duclair's shooting 27%. That's insane. I mean, that's absolutely that's like NBA numbers.
Right. And he's the only one that comes close to him is McDavid with 20%.
And again, McDavid has only played in the 12 games. I mean, we should look at that for a second. Anthony Duclair's shooting percentage, and he's got 10 goals. So we're talking right at the top of the rookie scoring race in terms of goals. He's shooting 28%.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Through 33 games, 30. He's played 31 games. He missed one with he was sick. So yeah, 28% shoot. I mean, nobody else is even close. Even in the NHL, nobody's close.
Right.
So my thing with the rookies is you always assume they're just going to keep getting better, assuming they take the right path. So guys like this, you would hope, are only going to improve. That shooting percentage isn't going to improve. That's going to come down at some point. But his numbers, I mean, he's well-rounded too, 10 goals, 9 assists. Let me ask you this. So that you have the top three. If the season ends right now, who's your rookie of the year?
Oof.
Or how do you, maybe let me reword this. Who do you think wins rookie of the year?
My vote would be for Max Domi.
I think he would win it, and if everything just stayed exactly the way it is right
because if I go on numbers alone, he's right there.
Yep.
He's toe-to-toe with everybody else. And then I go to the team he's on and what that player is doing for that team. Max Domi clearly makes the team he's on better, whereas Panarin and Larkin are on roster-full talent teams.
Yeah. I mean, the Coyotes, they're got to be closing in on their win total from last year, and we're not even at the halfway point, where they already have 15 wins. They're 15-15-2. A lot of that is Domi. I mean, none of these guys are their entire team, but of those top three, he's made so much more of an impact on his team. I know people notice Panarin more, but again, he's 24 years old. He's played in the KHL before. He's skating on a line with Patrick Kane. He's in Chicago. If he runs away with the rookie scoring race, you have to give him the rookie of the year.
Sure, he'll take it.
But if it's close, then I think the tie is going to go to either Domi or Larkin, or if Eichel jumped in there, I think it would go to Eichel. If it's close, I think the voters are going to go with the guy that is legitimately playing his first season of professional hockey and doesn't have Patrick Kane on his line. I think the one knock on Larkin is he's got Zetterberg on his line, but that's not really a knock. But in terms of voting, let me put it this way. If you were starting an NHL team and you had to, starting from scratch, and you had to take Panarin, Domi, or Larkin, I think 9 out of 10 people are going to take Domi. And he's got the numbers to back up, at this point, being Rookie of the Year. If everything just projected out the same way, and at the end of the year he's 5-6 points behind Panarin, and it's mostly because of assists, I think he probably wins.
Yeah, I also think if you take a look at the trajectory of Domi, the way his stats from juniors to the NHL, like he was drafted, he was sent back down, had a good camp, was sent back down. He's just done nothing but steadily grow and grow and grow. And now the Arizona is seeing the fruits of that growth. He's not just a guy that was just boom. This guy is steady and consistent. And if there's one thing I love, it's guys that can be consistent. Guys that show up every single night, do their job every single night. And the Max Domi as a player is just as good away from the puck as he is with the puck.
And that wasn't always the case. And so that's something that certainly we see here more firsthand. I'm sure Canadian hockey fans saw it last year in the World Junior Championships.
Sure.
But we saw him here 2 years ago in training camp look great offensively, but they wanted him to work on playing away from the puck. So he gets sent down. I'm sure in his mind, I mean, he's been a great junior player his whole life, a great hockey player, grew up around the NHL. I'm sure he thought, yeah, I could play right now.
Sure he did.
He handled it the right way. Comes back up last year, sent down again, and he handled that even better, I think, because then he...
Yeah, his numbers were career numbers.
He's just such a better player now even than he was 1 year ago. And so you like to see that pay off. There's a lot of guys. I don't remember a rookie race like this in the last at least 5, 6, 7, 8 years,
right,
where there's been 5, 6, 7, 8 guys to keep an eye on.
Yeah, okay, Chicago fans, settle down. Detroit fans, settle down. We're not bagging on your team. The top three guys are toe to toe, and we'll see if they stay toe to toe. Hopefully all three stay healthy, and we have a race to the finish.
And I'm still keeping an eye on McDavid when he comes back, because that's going to be fun.
You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @HockeyPodcast for even more hockey news. #Do it.
Final segment, news and notes. This is the segment that for some reason Doug hates. I've never understood why.
That's not true. It's the number thing that we do at the beginning that I'm not a fan of. I'm a huge fan of news and notes.
I don't think you remember how this works.
No, news and notes has always been.
Don't even remember what you like and what you don't like.
Number thing. Ugh.
Couple quick notes. I'll throw these out of the way very quick at the beginning. So
okay, let's go.
Calgary Flames. They would have been a disappointing team that we talked about in the first segment had they not won 7 straight to start the month of December. So they seem to have righted the ship.
They're in the hunt. They're in a 3-way tie for the 3rd spot in the division. So they were a playoff team last year. So I
started 2-8-1 to begin the year. But any team that wins 7 in a row is going to get back into playoff contention.
But that's it, right? You just got to string a streak.
And
say that 5 times fast.
String a streak.
Say that 5 times fast. But
my
left eye is always on Calgary because they did so well last year, and that management there is very savvy. So just keep an eye on those boys.
Yeah, last year I think they were a little ahead of schedule. Then they started off this year. It seemed like they were behind schedule. But now Dougie Hamilton looks like the Dougie Hamilton they expected.
Best hockey name ever.
I absolutely agree. The most just Canadian pond hockey name you can potentially ever imagine. Dougie Hamilton.
Dougie's such a great name.
Coyotes lose.
Can you do the Dougie?
Not during the podcast.
Oh, okay.
But yes,
I can't do the Dougie.
Well, you need somebody to teach you how to Dougie.
Right.
Teach you how to Dougie.
But I am a Dougie. Do I need to be taught how to do the Dougie when I am a Dougie?
I think you can do a different Dougie. But you don't know the.
I like
actual
this Dougie though.
Well,
so why would I do a different Dougie?
Then you just do.
So I don't need to be taught a Dougie because I'm already a Dougie.
So you can do a Dougie, just not the Dougie.
All right.
Where was I? Somewhere more important than that. The Coyotes without Mike Smith for 8 to 10 weeks. Louis Domingue comes in.
That's a big blow for that team.
It's their starting goalie.
Yeah, that's a big, big blow.
And again, that's another team that's right in it.
They're right in the hunt. Right in the hunt.
Really tough time to lose your goalie, but Louis Domingue came in last night, as we're recording this very early on Sunday, and pitched his first career shutout. So
it's awesome.
I don't know that he's the answer for the next 10 weeks, but he might be the answer in the future, and that's good to see that he goes
absolutely.
out there and got it against the Islanders, too, not against some AHL team or whatever. Now, transitioning to shutting out
Anaheim?
Yeah. Wow.
No letters, please.
Wow. Speaking of shutting out AHL teams, Jonathan Bernier had 3 straight for the Toronto Marlies.
Well, there was we're talking about the city of Toronto, and Toronto radio, I was listening to it, was like, how's he going to handle that? Well, they could do it as a conditioning thing. Yeah, but he started out as a starting goalie, and his mental capabilities and this and that, and I'm like, if he's not performing, send him down, let him get it together, and bring him back up. And what did he do?
Got 3 shutouts while he was down there. He seems like, and I don't know him, but he seems like somebody that he's handling this the right way. All the comments I heard were, this isn't anybody else's fault. I'm not performing. And to a certain extent, he has to kind of approve being sent down to condition for 2 weeks. And he responded very well to 3 shutouts. The last game, he ends up giving up 5 goals and losing 5-4, but he gets called up. Toronto doesn't have another goalie all of a sudden. That's just the way these things work in the NHL, which is why you always have to be ready. And Bernier struggled his first 2 games, gave up 5 against Tampa. Hey, look, Tampa scored goals. And then 3 against San Jose. They were both overtime losses. But then last night he shuts out his former team, and his former team just happens to be the LA Kings.
Right. And it was a 5-0 win for that team. So not only did he shut them out, his team played in front of them.
So I guess the question I have, because it sounds like James Reimer's not going to be back really anytime soon.
No, and they lost Garrett.
So Bernier's got to be the guy. What are the expectations like in Toronto? Because I know you don't live there, but you're from there. What are they like right now? My hope, just for everybody's sanity in that city, is that they have understood that this is going to be a lengthy process.
No, everybody in that city thinks that team's going to the Stanley Cup.
Even this year?
Yeah, that's how you think. That team is going to the Stanley Cup. You believe.
Okay.
You believe that Mike Babcock rode into the city of Toronto on his white stallion, and
he might have, actually.
And he's taken that team to the Stanley Cup.
Not this year.
No, not this year.
And not
There's
next
no way.
year, even if they do wrestle Steven Stamkos away from Tampa. It's
But
not next year.
my question's always been, I think most savvy fans understand that this is going to be kind of a reconstructive year. You got a new coach. He doesn't have a lot of pieces in his puzzle to put the puzzle together. So I think most Toronto fans will give him this season.
I picture Mike Babcock getting to Toronto, getting off the plane or his white horse, as you describe it, and he's like, "All right, what do I have to work with?" And they hand him the 500-piece puzzle box, and he dumps it out, and there's like 3,
Yeah.
and one of them's from a different puzzle.
And so I think next year will be the true test on how the media and the fans view Mr. Babcock and what he's doing with that team.
What about Bernier right now, though? Like, I know you're always of the mindset that you need 2 goalies, but you really need to pick one.
You have to.
Well,
Platooning doesn't work.
They never have in Toronto, it doesn't feel like, since Bernier's been there. But now, just by necessity, they've picked him because he's the only one that's healthy. Reimer's not signed past this year. This is a real big chance for Bernier, and one game does not make a starting goalie, but this is a real big chance for him to step up and say, this is my team going forward.
Well, absolutely. And he was kind of sort of the starting goalie at the start.
Yeah.
And the wheels kind of fell off early, so Babcock had to make changes. He didn't have a choice. And it always seems like Reimer, when he's thrown into, I need you to perform now, he performs.
Yeah,
But he doesn't
dislike
perform.
Reimer.
But he doesn't perform as you're starting this game, this game, this game. He seems to be that guy where I got a ton of pressure on your shoulder, and I need you to perform now. And that's when he answers the bell.
I was always, again, as kind of an outside perspective on Toronto, confused because I remember a couple years ago when they were playing Boston. I'll just bring this up again for you, just for your benefit.
Yeah,
Doug.
what was it, minute 48?
Yeah, and then the Bruins just come storming back in Game 7. They end up winning that series. It looked like Toronto had it wrapped up. Well, Reimer was the goalie that got them to the playoffs and was the goalie in that series.
Again, he
played
was
well.
brought in from the Marlies in a pressure situation, and he answered the bell.
But then they go out and get Bernier, and Reimer's never been the same. So I don't know. I mean, are those guys both there next year? They would have to re-sign Reimer for that to happen.
Well, you know me. I was a big fan of that acquisition because I went, yes, because Bernier was so good in L.A. behind Quick. I went, yes, now we got a solid number one
You were
goalie.
hoping you'd have a Martin Jones situation on your hands.
And it just didn't pan out.
Real quickly, last thing, and we'll get more into this next podcast, but the World Junior Championships, this is a great time of year. This is really just fantastic. We had the Road to the Winter Classic show has started on Epix.
And NHL.com.
So that started this past Wednesday, at least here in the U.S., depending where you're listening. But the World Juniors start on December 26th.
Boxing Day.
Whatever that means. I still don't know what Boxing Day is.
I'll explain it to you in a future podcast. Maybe next week's podcast
Okay.
I'll explain
'Cause I'm gonna
what
wanna know.
Boxing Day is.
I've got so many questions. Okay, we'll get to that. But I mean, the World Junior Championship's great every year. It's such a we need an influx of more hockey right around the holidays. So why not? And this year, we'll get more into the World Juniors next podcast too. But I will be watching the U.S. obviously, specifically Austin Matthews.
Yes.
From right down the street from where we're recording this show.
Yes. And skated out of the rink where the Coyotes practice a lot.
And probably, well, not probably, he is the number one pick this upcoming year.
Yeah, I haven't looked at his stats over in the Elite League.
They're pretty fantastic.
See how he's doing.
And he was hurt for a while, and he still leads the team.
That's unbelievable.
So that's the guy to watch at the World Juniors. Doug, this was fun.
Yeah. Let's do it again next week.
All right, I'm in. That's it for episode 60. Join us next time as we preview the World Juniors and debate the success of 3-on-3 overtime.
Not only that, we will try to break down what truly is Boxing Day.
We will? Yes. It sounds complicated. Plus, whatever else lands on the hockey radar. Thanks for listening to the Hockey Podcast.